Greetings and salutations, my fellow starlings, and welcome to another episode of A Witch's Perspective. I am Vi, the Abysmal Witch, and this is my perspective. I am a witch, but it is only my perspective. I would not say that it is shared by all ever, though sometimes it's shared by many. You never know, but I'll probably tell you, in which case you will then know and you will be slightly informed. Oh, miracles happen here. Yes, good morning. I'm always a little extra in the morning because extroverting is a thing and I over extroverted yesterday. Can we just say, slide aside here for a moment before we get into, the point of today, is the introvertedness and being extroverted for hours. Consequences and tired. And here we are. Anyhow, I want to talk today about all our relations, all my relations, all your relations, all my relations. It is itself a phrase, I believe indigenous in origin, probably as in North American indigenous peoples, I believe. I cannot be quoted on that because I have not researched it, but so says my brain in anecdotal ways. What a wonderful phrase, eh? All my relations. What for you comes to mind with all my relations? Is that immediate family? Well, at least at one point was called nuclear family, I think. Your immediate family? Is it your extended family? Is it your chosen family? Is it beyond family into community? What do you consider your relations? Do they need to be related by blood? Or more? Other? Nothing? What do you consider a relation? In the indigenous way of knowing and being, which this is one of the places I think they truly offer those of us of settler descent and disconnection a very healthy way to shift our perspective. And that is in viewing all around us as our relations. All of the plants, the animals, probably, though I don't know for sure from how their perspective holds it, but everything we are in relation with. They definitely hold the planet, Terra, as one of our relations. And it does make us wonder, when you move into a perspective of holding all of that, all of this as relation, then we can move into, well, what does that relationship look like? And it invites a change of perspective into something that we are owning and managing to something that we are connected with and related with. And it gives agency and respect to the other side of that equation. And which is why one of the many reasons, I guess, why I wanted to talk about all our relations this morning. I know, probably not morning where you are, but it is morning where I am. As you can see, if you are actually watching this, because you can see the yellowish, that soft yellow glow of the first thing morning dawn thing happening. So all my relations. When I talk about that, when I start inviting everything into that broader perspective, how does that feel for you? What does that feel like as an experience? One of the interesting things, so many interesting things, but a point with perspective that I don't know that I've mentioned before actually, but is a thread that runs through it all, is that information only takes us so far in our perceptions and in our perspective. By learning information, it can shift things, yes. And we can take in that knowledge and we can broaden our perspectives, yes. But when we start to embody, when we start to feel it emotionally, physically, when it becomes experienced in the soma, that's when I believe we really have a deep intrinsic shift in our perspective, because it's no longer something that we think or that we're wrapping our head around or that requires math to understand, but it's something that we can begin to live because we have felt it inside of ourselves, essentially. So with that thought and all our relations, bringing that into an embodied place, pretty freaking awesome, gotta say. So what are some of my notes about this? Yes, I'm actually admitting to looking at my notes. So as a Wiccan, I would say that my training, which, let's face it, is a tad a while ago. I was realizing yesterday, because it was the start of term. I work at a university, and my degree, the degree that I have, the year that I got my degree, which was 1993, puts it as ever so much older than many of the students that I saw yesterday. My degree is older than our students. Oh, talk about humbling. It's age humbling. Because, there's that fun perspective that goes on inside, I think, of all of us, of we remain constant in time and, kind of feel the age when we get the aches and pains. But for the most part, we're not old, right? Right? Until everyone else starts getting younger. Anyhow, long ago, 30 plus years ago, the ways in which I was taught Wicca, which is essentially a magic-based religion. It's a way to go about it. Nature-based religion, much more common phrase actually. That it was teaching a strong focus into deity. Really, that original teachings that I received, that was what we had. We worked with energy. We worked essentially magic, and we also worked with deity. We did not work with ancestors. We did not work with what I call naturum, but others probably call nature spirits. I just really liked having one word instead of two. Makes me happy. More concise, all that kind of jazz. I'm waiting to turn left, which is wanting to not get hit by anybody. Momentarily distracted by the realities of driving while doing a podcast. Anyway, so we really only had the one relationship, which I think I'm going to talk about in the sibling episode of An Abysmal Perspective today. Anyhow, that perspective in a lot of ways pretty limited, right? We were relating with things beyond this world, even though we celebrate nature and revere nature and see deity immanent in nature, all of that, and yet it was all about deity. It was not about nature itself and having relationship. I think it's a holdover personal belief of the ceremonial magic traditions that came out of Britain in the 18th, 19th century, somewhere in that, the Theosophy Society. The words in the head have heard, but not something I talk about very often because I don't generally delve into history. Because there's so much to know and I don't want to misrepresent. But I think that tendency of essentially the colonialism mindset and how it related to land, that land is something to be owned, really robbed the colonizers and therefore the settlers as well of that deep connection with the land that we live on, that gave rise to us, really, that we are part of an ecosystem far greater than just humanity. And I think that that's something, that disconnect is still something that we very much struggle with these days, and where engaging with indigenous ways of knowing and being can actually help heal us and bridge that gap that we have unintentionally created. Which I actually have a personal belief, again, that this ties back into the shift in the rise in religion that said God is separate and high and must be reached for, and that this world that we live in and this body that we live in is somehow inherently bad and sinful, and that belief has caused such a divide between us and the world we live in that it is what is going to ultimately kill us all as we destroy ourselves and our planet. But hey, that's going a little too dark for first thing in the morning as the dawn is rising. So let's move on away from that idea. Even on the witchcraft side, which is moving away from the idea of Wicca. And yes, witch can be used for both Wiccans and witches, but witchcraft side, which is more the cunning person healing, more of a just general doer, a practitioner of the arts, if you will. Not focused in on deity, may not engage with deity particularly much, but I don't have a strong sense of working with the items in nature in a related way. It may well have been the case and just not documented. And that's something that also faded away as the colonial mindset really overtook everything and everybody who was even in any way tangentially related to it. And therefore kind of causing that, again, that separation. It may not have always been the case that it was engaged with that way, but I do think that's kind of where it landed. Anyhow, to the many digressions. And it's not that it would, if we look at other practices, so what you could call pagan practices, pagan religions, such as Druidry, modern Druidry certainly, very much focused on three different relations: deity, ancestors, and the Naturam, the nature spirits. At least in there's two main forms of Druidry, Obod and ADF, and I think it was ADF that I took a beginning course in. So, and they very much did. So it's not like it's a widespread thing that leaving out these additional relations, but it is something that happened. I am sorry, this feels a little extra disjointed this morning. Not the usual disjointed, but a little extra disjointed. My apologies. And I think in these relations, there's a lot of it that has to do with what is the relationship. So let's get into that side. What is the relationship? What is it about relating? There are different ways of relating. I have not pre-looked that up because I'm so prepare. With relationships, a lot that gets talked about is it power with or power over? Power over being, I am the boss of you. I have power over you. You will do what I say. You could say a dominant submissive relationship, but that goes into entirely different territory, which I may talk about someday. Who knows? But power over is, yes, it is an authoritarian situation. Power with is community-based. We are working together. When we work together, we have greater power than we did as individuals. And so this is one of the fundamental ways in which I have heard relationships described in the pagan world over the years. Again, I am not well connected in the last decade, when internal, not external. So maybe the talk has changed. Maybe things have radically changed. I somehow doubt it. So when it comes to relating, and again, as I'm talking, what is your familiar type of relating? Do you have that power over, power with? If you're working with, when you think about the planet, is it something we own? Do we own the land, or are we caretakers of the land? Right? Colonial versus indigenous perspective. We own the land, or we are caretakers of the land. For the sake of our race, global, I really hope that we can work towards embracing we are caretakers of the land, because that's how we get through the next century and have another century to go afterwards. There's one other point I think I want to make on relationships in this untidy mess of a podcast. And that is, and I feel like this episode is really kind of about setting up other potentially discussions when I want to talk about relationship. I can point back to the messy insanity of this one. That when looking at a relationship, there's the types, right? And I really just mentioned the two, the power over, power with. There are undoubtedly more, but just leaving it in that kind of simple way of relating. And another concept that I want to invite into your perspective, that is certainly where I have landed, is understanding that, I mean, we are in relationship, and I talked about this somewhere in the last couple of episodes. We are in relationship with every plan we have, every item we own. If it's in our life, we have relationship with it. If it's in our desires, interestingly enough, I think we have relationship with it. But what is that thing that is the relationship? Because it's not the thing or the other person. Not to say that people are things, because the relationship is not me. It is not me. It is the connection between the two of us. So if I'm in a relationship with a sibling, my sibling is a separate person from me. We are two people, individual people. And we can never fully understand another person or another perspective, no matter how much we try, because ultimately we are not them, and there is an internal experience we will never have. But they are them, we are us. And then the relationship is the third thing. It is a third thing. It is not attached so intrinsically to one or the other of us that it simply blends into us. I think it's really healthy to recognize that the relationship between two things or more is an additional component. It is the third aspect of being. It is, the relationship itself becomes the third thing. And actually you can take this down into I'm pretty sure mathematical kind of situations or basic concept formulations, because you have one thing, you have thing, you have not thing, thereby you have two, because you have me, not me, right? So me, not me, two things. And then, well, what is that relationship between the me and the not me? That's the third thing. Because it's not this and it's not that, which means that there is this further understanding. Okay. I'd like to call it the channel. I don't know why. I believe that's what it's called, the train that goes from France to Britain and vice versa. Because it's in the channel, but it's underneath in a tunnel, so they call it the channel. I don't know why I call the relationship the channel. I guess because I perceive it as like a tube-like thing between us, and either end of the tube is highly influenced by the person or being on the end of it, on that end. But the majority of it really is a blend of what we bring to it, our perspectives that we hold to it, but also what we put into that relationship. And what we put into that is the critical component, right? That really can change everything. But understanding that the relationship is not the other being. It is the relationship itself. It is influenced by both. Is really kind of, I think, a critical underlying basic fundamental component of perspective holding that can really help and serve. Wow, that should be a TLDR in the show notes, if I ever actually do show notes for these. Okay, my starlings, I'm going to bid you adieu and let this insanity rumble to its face collapsing conclusion. Take great care of yourselves. Bless me.